Hey everyone, and welcome to the first episode of Brawlhalla Weekly, the weekly podcast where we talk about news discussions, we bring on a guest, and we have discussions about balance and meta. Today, I'm your host, Part of the Creed.
I'm one of the co-hosts, TWK.
I'm also one of the co-hosts, Berthen.
And our guest for today is going to be Raidhyn, who we'll be talking to later in the podcast. But first, let's start with some community news. The first thing we'll be talking about is the dev streams. This week, the developers showed off the new character, the Barbarian, who looks pretty cool. She's got an axe and a sword, and her stats are 7 attack, 7 dex, 3 defense, and 5 move speed.
Oh my god, that's going to be so fun.
Yeah, an X character with more than 5 attack speed.
Yeah, I know that 7 dex for sure is something a lot of people are both excited and like really worried about. I know definitely like axe sort of it's been known as a slow weapon ever since they released it. The first axe legend was Taros, who is known for being slow, and just the way the axe sort of plays, it's a big heavy weapon. So someone with 7 dex wielding an axe is going to be a monster.
Yeah, I wonder how that's gonna go.
Two of the 3 characters that have 3 decks both wield an axe.
Yeah.
Like Taros and Ulgrim.
So, like, the question is it because of the stats, or is there the axe users just have low attack speed, or is it like the axe is actually slow? So, would it be fast on a 7 attack speed character?
I guess we're gonna find out.
Yeah, we are. That's gonna answer the question.
Of course, it's important to note the 7735 is still like the developers are working on those stats, so it's not final, and we'll have to see if they decide to keep that. I know they showed off. I don't remember exactly which one was it. It might have been Barraza or someone later, Ulgrim, but they showed off an axe character who had high dex, and everyone freaked out, and they sort of like toned it down a little bit.
Oh right, that was Azoth when they were first showing him.
Yeah. So maybe they'll do that again. Maybe not. Maybe it's time for a high dex axe.
How
We'll have
much
to find
attack
out.
speed is Azoth? How much attack speed is Azoth?
He's down to 5. I think initially when they were showing him, he was at 7.
Okay.
Sounds about right. So the Barbarian was really exciting, but a lot of people were wondering about Mordex. And if you don't know who Mordex is, he's someone who was hinted at in the lore of Koji, I believe it was. And
I think it was Diana.
or Diana.
Yeah,
and
that's
so
pretty decent.
people were thinking, hey, the next character is going to be Mordex. Turned out it was this Barbarian, and we'll have to see whether Mordex is coming in the future. I know one of the devs, Dolce, is very excited to have Mordex, whoever it is, but we'll have to find out.
I mean, I'm really excited about Mordex because all we know so far is that like Diana doesn't like him being in Brawlhalla. So that means he's got to be a monster of some sort.
He's
And
got
I
to be a
love
monster,
monsters.
and that name, Mordex, what does it mean?
We have more than 8 decks for once.
That'll be very scary for sure.
Yeah.
So the next thing on the list is Brawlhalla Worlds, which is the big international tournament that Blue Mammoth Games is hosting later in the year, somewhere around November-ish, is what we've heard so far. Matt Womer, also known as Matterhorn, came onto the stream and basically asked the community for some feedback, and basically asked, "Hey, community, how many people do you think would come to Worlds, and what might be the price of the venue?" And so I think it's super cool that A, Blue Mammoth Games is asking for community feedback, but also B, that we're getting more information about Worlds, because it was unveiled a couple months back, and all we've known so far is $50,000 prize pool, at least, and later in the year. And so I know BMG working out all the details. I'm sure there's a lot of things to plan out. But as we get closer, I'm excited to get more details.
Yeah, me too. I mean, we've had a slew of tournaments recently, so the competitive scene's been churning up a lot. And I know everyone's kind of really excited to try and grab a piece of that $50,000 prize pool.
Yeah, I wonder how the invitation's gonna work. Is it like just based off community tournaments, or they're gonna start their own thing? You know?
Yeah, I know that. I know that there's plenty of interesting discussion about, hey, how much does Brawl ladder ranking actually matter? And if you win this tournament, is that worthy of getting into Worlds? And so, I'm betting BMG will have some sort of system to determine that. But we'll have to wait and see what that is. PAX East is coming up in this week, actually, and it's going to be super exciting because BMG has said that they're going to officially reveal the new weapon. And so far, we're not 100% sure what that is. But on the last dev stream, a certain developer, Raidhyn, may or may not have accidentally unveiled something by mentioning fists. And so it's important to note that when Raidhyn said fists, Dolce kind of freaked out.
Streaming from the show floor, we may what we may try to do is probably that Sunday we may try to do a stream showing off the fists, but there will be YouTube videos and stuff. Stream showing off the fists. But there will be YouTube videos and stuff. There will be things. There will be. Did I just say stuff?
God.
Oh my goodness. All right. Well, we're gonna be showing things. It's gonna be interesting.
He got very worried. So the two conclusions I have to draw from this is that either Raidhyn accidentally said fists and it's a new weapon and we can all get very excited, or Raidhyn and Dolce are master people who basically came down and came up with this plan of tricking all of us into thinking that the next weapon is going to be fists.
It's very likely. They're huge trolls.
I don't know what to think. Part of me is yeah, that would be awesome. The other half is but everyone kind of already has fists, so what are they gonna do?
I mean, I have to imagine they're like power gloves, right? Like super fists or something?
I would I guess, but
like it shoots out auras or something.
I don't know. Isn't Dolce the one who gave us Cassidy's cupcakes?
Dolce gave us Cassidy's cupcakes. What do you
Raidhyn
think? You think that means something? He's a sneaky guy?
I really don't know. I don't know what to make of this. I wasn't able to catch the dev stream. I gotta go through the VODs.
Yeah.
I gotta go through the VODs.
Definitely check that out. See what they said in the description. If you're watching this on the YouTube channel, I'll have a link to the exact timestamp of when and where that happened. But now I think we're going to move on to community news. I'll let you take that away, Berthen.
All right. So it's been exciting lately with all the sponsorships that's going on. And so we have about 3 sponsors. And 2 of them were approached by our very own Techie10, aka the Techspert, on Reddit. So if you have questions about sponsors and stuff, you can find him usually on Snack Stream. He's part of 3DT, and he actually approached Vex Gaming for Ren. So Ren is now Vex Gaming, and so also Void is Kingdom Esports, and so the deal is that the whole clan gets some kind of benefit from it, but only 4 players will be actually sponsored, and they are Doppy, Crocky, Pickled Potatoes, and Aimer. But for some reason, Aimer left this week, and we don't quite know why yet.
Right. What I heard was there was some sort of internal either miscommunication or, Aimer disagreed with what was going on. We don't really know any details, but we know that Aimer has left Vex Gaming. I also want to take a quick time to point out that Vex came from Ren, and Ren was actually the clan that came out of CG, who is Com Gamers, the really old clan back in the day that fell apart after a bunch of clan stuff happened, and we all found out that Com Gamers was, kind of sketchy. And so it's interesting to see that all these players have gone from one sponsorship to having to be independent to this other new sponsorship that's hopefully a little more trustworthy, and hopefully like things work out, because this is pretty exciting.
Yeah, I mean, that kind of shows that, they're looking for a foothold in the esports scene, that they were willing to try out some sponsors early on, and, hopefully this means that, like, all their hard work has paid off, and I'm really excited to see where it goes from here. And as far as Aimer leaving Vex, I'm kind of sad to see that, because he's a very solid player. So
Yeah,
definitely
he was
a
like
boon to their
at
roster.
ranked number 1 on the ladder last season for a while
Yes.
on the US.
Yeah.
He
And
was very high up.
something interesting about that was, like, they tweeted out the sponsorship thing on Vex Gaming Twitter, and like they didn't put Aimer in it. At first, they only put Doppy, Crocker, and Pickled Potatoes. So
Wow. So
I thought that was really weird.
yeah, it may be that Aimer was left out and he felt left out and he left for that reason. I know another player who was in Vex, wasn't necessarily part of the sponsorship, but was in the clan. Alec Curiosity also left. So there could be a number of reasons for internal strife. Whatever the case is, hopefully the clan, or the clan is solid and we can get more competitive gameplay out of everyone from the community.
Yeah, and Vex isn't just looking for clans and such. They're also picking up streamers apparently. As they recently picked up Berthen, me, as a streamer for Vex. So I'm not part of the clan. I don't compete for them. They're not gonna pay for traveling expenses and such. But I'm partnered with them as a Vex streamer. So if you're interested, maybe talk to the CEO or something about streaming. That could also be a potential thing for Brawlhalla moving on. Like, they could sponsor a couple of streamers and give them benefits and such.
It was pretty cool. I like seeing sponsors not only pick up competitive teams, but streaming networks. I mean, we've seen it in a number of other games. And
Dignitas, I think, is the biggest one. I've seen a lot of Dignitas streamers that aren't necessarily like part of any teams. And then for Kingdom Esports, the two from the Void Clan that got sponsored were Legit Punisher and Ender. Ender, you guys probably don't know, he used to be Flex, but he changed his name to Ender.
Flex was really, really powerful back in the day. He was known for his Lucian guns, and I want to say he was basically undefeated for a good long time.
Was he?
As long as basically BMG kept guns at the forefront of the meta until one fateful night when they sort of nerfed it a little bit, and suddenly Flex just disappeared.
I heard like Flex played in a way that no one could even touch him. Like, he spaced so well that he would just hit the enemy without them ever being able to respawn.
Now though, he's playing a number of different legends, so not quite the same, but I expect we'll still see some great play from him.
Yeah, and for Kingdom Esports has confirmed that Legit Punisher and Ender are both going to represent them at Combo Breaker. Like, all their traveling fees, I assume, will be covered and such.
Nice, because Combo Breaker, when is that?
Oh yeah, Combo Breaker is coming up in May 27th through May 29th, so that's pretty soon, in about a month.
Oh, nice.
So
that's going on over near Chicago, right?
Mm-hmm. And so if you live in the Chicago area and you want to come over to Combo Breaker, the sign up for Combo Breaker itself is I want to say $50 up until the end of April. But signing up for the actual Brawlhalla tournament is free. So if you're in the area, even if you just want to go in and try it out, definitely give it a shot. May 27th to 29th.
Yeah, this is really cool because, like, we can already see the sponsors doing their part already. Because maybe these guys might not have had money to travel and such, and the risk might not be worth it because they could spend a lot of traveling fees there and maybe not win anything, and that would be terrible. But now it's covered, so they can have a bit of an easier time just focusing on their gameplay, just practicing instead of like linking out for finance, money, for all this stuff. It's really, really good to have these sponsors. And next up is BX3 Esports, who feel a little under the radar. We didn't really hear about what was going on with them until recently. And so BX3 picked up a bunch of EU players. Christo, team captain, Marshall manager.
And so from what I've heard, it's basically BX3 is like it's an EU-based esports organization. They've got Crystal as the team captain, Marshall as the manager, and they've just got a bunch of other people all over the EU area. And I expect that at least in European tournaments, BX3 is going to be a big name.
Nice. I'm excited to see that because who's in that one right now? We've got, what is that saying? Crystal is the team captain, and Marshall Diaki is going to be the manager.
Yeah.
Awesome. Who else do they have on that lineup?
And the players in this clan is going to be Zelo, Zoloxary, who plays Ember, Adam Mystic, Lance, and Effie.
And I think there's a couple more out there.
Do they?
But basically, I think they're still sort of like adding people. But I think that's, for now, our first European-sponsored clan. And I know the EU tournament scene has been trying to ramp themselves up. I know it's a little difficult since, the servers themselves are in America. And there haven't been any LAN tournaments yet in EU. But with the introduction of a sponsored team, maybe we'll see that in the future.
Yeah.
All right, and then, I mean, speaking about like the tournaments that have been popping up, there's been a lot. There's been a lot of activity lately, and it's pretty awesome to see. I mean, I've been watching as much of it as I can, those that we're not involved in as well, and we got some news for you here. So the BCS crew, the Brawlhalla Championship, they got a 2v2 clan battle coming up. This one is being kind of sponsored by Foda. He did one of these already back in November. So that one was amazing. I think that we've got VODs of it somewhere that we'll be able to
I'll definitely link that down. I think it's super cool because a lot of the focus in the community is 1v1. And Foda, along with, the people who are hosting BCS, Designated Asian, and Sparky878, they're really into 2v2, and I think 2v2 has a great place in the competitive side of the community.
Yeah, I think it's really exciting to watch.
Yeah, and they're definitely backing this. Foda's tossing up a $1,500 prize pool for this event.
It's crazy.
So make sure to hit up that Reddit post, get your clan signed up, start practicing. That's going to be happening May 1st, I believe, that Sunday. And then, speaking of the BCS crew, week 3 just happened.
We are recording this on during the weekend, and so just to clarify, we'll be mostly going over the news from the week before we record this, just so that we have a certain level of continuity.
So week 3 just happened, but week 2 was particularly interesting. So a little bit of history for it. During week 1, Pugsy kind of just ran through straight, took the entire thing. Week 2, however, Pickled Potatoes won, coming up from the losers bracket, resetting it during grand finals against Pugsy. It's an amazing set. There will be links for it below, I'm sure. And it was just really a sight to see. Fantastic play coming in. Pickled Potatoes, when he did that reset, it was pretty commanding.
Oh, yeah.
Definitely worth a watch, especially if you want to learn how to play guns.
Yeah.
Just a masterclass.
Pickled Potatoes representing Vex really well there.
Oh, yeah. And, but right before that, though, it was a very action-packed tournament. Pugsy matched up against legit Punisher, and there was a little bit of talk between the two.
Yeah.
So what ended up happening is they agreed on not only their tournament set, but also turning it into a money match right then and there.
Yeah.
To decide, like, who was better, because both of them were feeling a sort of way.
Yeah, and everyone in Twitch chat was really hyped up about that too. Everyone was just
oh my gosh, it was insane.
$20 on the line, or was it 25?
$25.
$25 on the line. Legit Punisher and Pugsy talking smack back and forth. Legit was like, "You're good, but you're not that good." And you know, Pugsy was like, "I can beat you pretty easily," and they didn't. And Pugsy 3-0'd Legit Punisher. It was brutal.
That's rough. That's rough. I mean, that was the place. That was the match for third place. So Legit Punisher did make it into the top 3, securing a bunch of points for himself, leading into the rest of BCS. But that was just unfortunate to see after the verbal exchange that happened.
Yeah, definitely.
So look forward for more from the BCS crew, but they're not the only ones running a show in town. So we've got the Brawl League Masters Finals that happened as well. And LDZ, I'm sure all of you have been seeing him a ton, because he's been on a tear. Like, he has been playing phenomenally well, solid matches all around, and he's been definitely making a name for himself more so now than he has been before, to kind of breakout performances. Yeah. So he actually took first place in that one, after also losing in round 1 and coming back with a bracket reset.
Which apparently is a trend now. Like, everyone just losing round 1, and they're like, all right, buckle down, get ready, go all the way up through the loser's bracket, and do a full bracket reset up in grand finals.
It's just hardcore, do or die. Like, amazing, absolutely amazing.
This is why, like, double elimination is so important, because the people who lose the first few rounds, they could still come back and just beat everyone. And you got to give them that chance.
Yeah, and, you know, the grand finals was actually against Pickled Potatoes. So the person who won BCS Week 2 ended up being taken down by LDZ in Brawl League Master Finals. And then we do have another strong player showing up in third for that, Twilight. He took second in the final round tournament, if I'm remembering correctly.
And then ended up in third place for the, second in final round, and then ended up in third for Brawl League Masters.
Yeah, so Twilight coming from Boo, he's been playing really well, just solid performances. I don't know if he's won any recent tournaments, though, so we'll probably see more from him in the future.
I believe he's been doing pretty well in BCS. I think he won second place in week 1.
Yeah, his points is really high. I think he's one of the top 5 point scorers.
And then we've got also a tournament coming from the Gravy Cancel guys, the April 10th tournament. I absolutely love their stream. I love watching it. They're just a great group of guys. And, you know, they've been doing this for a while now.
They show a lot of enthusiasm. I appreciate that.
Yeah, I know they've got, you know, their main Twitch channel. They archive everything on YouTube. I'm sure there will be links for this below, as with everything. Thank you, Creed. This was yet another tournament that LDZ won. Yeah. So he took first place over Absent in grand finals. And then there was a player by the name of Cody Travis. Now, I'm not really familiar with Cody Travis. Has anybody seen him play before?
Yeah, so what I understand about this particular week of Gravy Cancel was, you know, one of the great things about Gravy Cancel is that, A, you know, anyone can sign up, and B, it gets really big. So, you know, everyone out there from the Brawlhalla community, even people as low as, you know, from gold or silver, just join in, see how well you do. And I think the way it works is that Gravy Cancel has a certain number of tournaments, and then the people who place in the top spots of those tournaments get invited to the Gravy Cancel Invitational. So most of the top players will play Gravy Cancel, get themselves into the Invitational, and then, you know, win that out. And so I think in this particular tournament, maybe not all of the super high tier players were participating. And so we ended up with, you know, LDZ, Absent, and Cody Travis.
Yeah, and something interesting about LDZ is that he was on a team that was relatively low level, you know, like inertia, but recently he got picked up by the clan Vex now, so he might look for to be sponsored with all his first place results.
Oh, that's pretty exciting.
Yeah.
Wow. So that about wraps it up for the tournaments of the past week.
All right.
I'm excited to see more.
Yeah. Thank you, TWK, for that information about tournament news. Thank you to Berthen for community news. And I believe now we're going to go ahead and invite our special guest, Raidhyn.
Hey, how's it going, everybody?
Hello, Raidhyn.
Hey.
Thanks for having me on the show.
Thank you for coming. So, to those who do not know Raidhyn, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Hello, everybody. I'm Dan Raidhyn Nichols. You might recognize me from the dev streams. I typically stream on Thursdays with Dolce. I am the marketing, brand, and community manager for Blue Mammoth Games. I kind of do what pretty much everyone on the team does, which is a lot of different things at the same time. And yeah, so that's me.
Cool. And so, what exactly is your purpose as the marketing community manager?
So essentially what I do is I handle a lot of the communications and graphics and kind of content that we put out officially. So I handle all of our social media. I've made all of our trailers, in addition to developing a lot of the different assets that go out to different channels, especially upcoming stuff with PlayStation, you know, the Steam store page and all that kind of stuff. So it's basically like anything that is public facing that isn't actually part of the game is kind of my realm.
Okay, that's interesting. And now you mentioned public facing and your community manager. You weren't always part of BMG. So what was like the hiring process like? Where did you come from?
Yeah, so and it's funny because back in closed beta, everyone knew my story, you know, but now we've got all these players. It's, you know, kind of relevant again, I guess. So what happened was I picked up Brawlhalla right when it went into closed beta, and I was just a guy making YouTube videos and, you know, working a marketing job back in Chicago. So I picked up Brawlhalla kind of on a whim. I got, you know, a closed beta key access to it, and I played it once and did the whole YouTube thing of like, yeah, I'm going to check out this indie game. I got a code for it because that's what YouTube people do. And, well, it was really fun, so I kept playing it. And after, like, playing it for a while, like, not a single guide had been made at this point. There wasn't a single tutorial anywhere. Like, there was no recommendations on how to play the game well. So I was like, I'll make a guide. You know, I'll be, like, the first one to do that. And so I make this guide, and then some guy shows up, and he's like, yo, 1v1 me, bro. And then it just spiraled into this big thing of, like, kicking off, you know, the Brawlhalla tournaments and, you know, becoming a competitive player and getting really active in the community, making a bunch of guides and doing different things. And what most people in the community don't know is that after about a month and a half of playing or so, I reached out to BMG, and I was like, hey, you know, I've been playing your game. You've seen my videos. I know because you retweeted it. I'm watching you. But, you know, I do marketing for a living. Like, if you guys want, like, I've been doing free consultations for indie devs for quite a while, and I'd love to, you know, just have a chat with you guys. So I started doing consultations with them back in January of 2015, and we would kind of touch base like every month or two. And then after a while, it just kind of evolved to a point where they were like, hey, would you want to do this, you know, like all the time? And my response was, yes, I would like to do this all the time. So I wrote up a description for them titled Project Shield.
Oh.
And for many reasons, because I had been harassing them for a shield weapon for a very long time. And so I wrote up this document. I was like, here's all the things I can do. And then, like, 2 weeks later, I was, you know, packing up to move down to Georgia. So, yeah.
Pretty awesome. Yeah, I know that your guides were super popular within the community. Like, I think one of the big ones was the Bronze to Silver guide. Like, that was a really good foothold as far as like an introduction for people who had just sort of picked up Brawlhalla casually into a more fighting game community mentality.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the interesting things still, like, to this day about Brawlhalla, is that while Brawlhalla is a fighting game, the type of players that we attract are coming from all over because of the fact that it's on PC and that it's free to play and everything. So, you know, when I describe it to people, when they're asking about, you know, the player base, they're like, oh, you must get like a lot of Smash players and guys who play Marvel and Street Fighter. And I'm like, well, I love those people, and we have a few of them, and they're precious to me. But the majority of folks that we get are guys who are coming from like other really popular free-to-play titles like League of Legends and Team Fortress and, you know, Dota 2. We have a lot of Counter-Strike players, like guys who just, you know, they understand competitive PC gaming really well, but they never necessarily had a fighting game in their repertoire. And so from the guide standpoint, that's kind of what really helped me out with that, was just kind of breaking down these concepts that are really normal to fighting game players, but for, you know, people coming from other competitive genres, just like, wait, what's footsies, you know? So it's been really interesting seeing the competitive community kind of evolve since that point.
Cool.
Yeah. And talk about the competitive side of the community. BMG has been really supportive of it, just streaming stuff on their channel, such as tournaments and such. And so they even went so far as to put in a $50,000 prize pool tournament, an international one later this year, which is really big, and that's quite a lot for a small indie game company while the game's still in beta. So why did you guys decide to take this approach?
Well, honestly, a big reason behind the thinking for this was because of the competitive community. You know, like going back to closed beta and the way that we started, you know, like there was no 1v1 mode at all. There was no ranked mode at all. There was no ladder. There was no, the training room, I think, like had 2 options in it, you know, like pick your character and pick the other guy. Like basically, one of the things that gets said a lot about esports is that like you can design a game to be competitive and you can throw money at it as much as you want, but ultimately the community is what decides whether or not your game is going to be successful competitively. You know, if you look at the games that have been played competitively for years and years and years, it's because they had these passionate communities behind it that just never stopped competing. And I think that's true for most competitive esports titles. With us, you know, that whole on-running year of just nonstop community tournaments, in addition to the fact that, you know, the entire development of Brawlhalla in a lot of ways was steered by the guys who wanted to make it more competitive, to, you know, put in things like rank, to add all those things. That's really why they decided to throw down a $50,000 prize pool, because ultimately it's like, well, we know we have the players, we know we have people who are competitive and can compete at this level, so let's figure out like a way where we can do something that's going to give an opportunity to those players while also letting us see, like, is this the route that Brawlhalla can go down? You know, if the championship is successful and it goes well, you know, like having something like that for a competitive game where you have a championship every year can be incredibly good for the health of the game. But, you know, the reason why we're doing it is, you know, to kind of, one, just kind of see how it goes. Like we do with everything. It's like, all right, let's do a championship. You have no idea what's going to happen when you do these things, you know? It's like, which is part of what makes it thrilling and terrifying at the same time. But the big reason why we decided to, you know, put the money towards that is just, it's like, it's been a year, at this point, a year and a half of like non-stop tournaments all the time that people are just putting together because they want to see people compete. And, you know, that's something that as a studio, it's like we have to look at that and take that seriously. So what can we do? And so the championship is that.
Yeah. I know that you were talking about sort of community-driven competitive sides. The game, Brawlhalla, gets a lot of comparisons to Smash. And I know that Smash as a competitive game is really supported by the community, but the developers don't really do much there. And so I know that when Brawlhalla was getting its competitive side, and suddenly BMG is like putting money into it and hosting tournaments on their Twitch channel, it was really exciting that you guys were taking that extra step.
Yeah, it's something, you know, it's funny that you mentioned the Smash community, because when I was at GDC this year, I went and they have an esports track at GDC now, so there's about a good half dozen talks or so just about esports, and one of them was from the tournament organizer from Melee It On Me, and he was just talking about how much the Smash community has grown over the last couple of years because of streaming and visibility, and how much easier it is to like expose people to games for the first time. And it was funny because the thing that someone asked him is like, you know, if you could get anything like different, what would you get? And he was like, I just want support from Nintendo. You know, and like, it's difficult for a giant organization like Nintendo to suddenly figure that out. But for us, it's like we've always been community driven. We've always been player driven. You know, BMG has always taken player feedback very, very seriously. So for us, it's like, well, yeah, like let's figure out how to support the community. Like we may not be able to jump into doing like a full-on season structure right now. We may not be able to run our own tournaments right now. There's a lot of things that we can't do. But one thing that we will always do is try and support the community as much as possible. When we've got people like you guys and all the other tournament organizers out there just, you know, sacrificing their weekends and free time to, you know, pour themselves into this game that they love. It's like, well, yeah, let's figure out how to thumbs up that and help out as much as possible. Yeah, so that's really the way that we look at it.
Yeah, so you're talking a lot about this community support, and I mean, we've seen it with the tournaments, but that's not the only thing that you've been highlighting. I've been seeing a lot of these pop up off of, you know, your website, Brawlhalla.com, and subsequently making their way to the Reddit and your Twitter and everything. It's those community roundups. So what are those exactly?
Yeah, so the community roundup is kind of... we came up with this idea for, you know, just like, it's cool, you know, that like on Twitter we can like tweet out fan art, you know, and stuff, and it's nice like every now and again we can give someone out a shout out, but like, you know, what's the bigger thing that we can do that would be interesting? And it's like, well, we've got all this stuff happening every week, let's just try to round up as much as we possibly can, and we'll put it on, you know, we'll put it on the website, because why not? Like, you know, it's kind of our content because it's about our game, and like hopefully it helps you know, some of these artists and streamers and the rest get some extra publicity, so why not? Let's do it. So basically there's a group of content people who are helping me kind of, you know, make sure that I'm finding everything. We have a Slack channel in the office where everybody posts fan art every week and the other cool things that pop up, so we all just kind of contribute to it, and then I wrap it up and put it on the website, because it's just another way for us to kind of, you know, show that our community is awesome and they're doing really cool stuff. And it's great because, like, even though I'm constantly paying attention to what I believe to be everything that, you know, Brawlhalla is doing everywhere, there's still things that I miss. I'm like, oh, holy crap, how did I miss that one? Like, that's awesome. So it's just been, you know, a really fun thing to work on.
Yeah, that's really awesome. I love seeing just all the people that you highlight in those, just trying to drive more traffic to them.
Yeah.
I know a bunch of the streamers have seen huge boosts from those.
Good.
Even just...
Yeah, like that's the whole point, and that's one of the things too, like because I've noticed this just as I've done this, and then, you know, working with in the games community and stuff too, like if you're a fan artist, like go make a free DeviantArt profile. You know, if you're making GIFs, like go make a Tumblr, like do something where I can reference you as a person, so that it helps like your audience grow. It's really cool for, you know, for people to have to just like, yeah, okay, I'm gonna stick this on Imager, you know, and like that's great, okay, but I always feel a whole lot better when I can actually reference somebody's Tumblr blog or DeviantArt page, or, you know, with streamers too, like I tell them, like, look, just export your stuff to YouTube, man, because then you've got two places now where people can go. So yeah, if you're out there and you're making cool stuff, like let me promote the crap out of you, please.
Yeah,
and I'm sure I can speak for the community here that we thank you so much for doing this and really supporting the community, and, you know, it's really cool to see BMG doing all these things.
Yeah, and I think the community roundup's really cool. BMG is always just doing all these great things for the community to help it grow, and so is there any other cool things that you guys are working on that we should know about?
So there's always stuff in the works. Some of the stuff that we've been trying to do more of recently is doing the community spotlights on weekends for tournaments. So in the last couple weeks, we've had Brawl Leagues, Masters, and also you guys were talking about the Brawlhalla Championship Series earlier, so we've been hosting that on the official channel. which, you know, coming from a streaming and YouTube background, I kind of have mixed feelings about, because it's kind of like, is it growing our channel or is it growing your audience? I'm not really sure. But most people seem to have like reacted really positively to that. So long as tournament organizers want to keep working with us, like hosting tournaments on weekends that are being done by like very stable organizations is something that we're still very interested in doing. I've also started trying to do more tutorial videos on the YouTube. I'm hoping to start cranking those out like with at least 1 or 2 a week. I'm basically making sure I carve out like an afternoon each week to just work on the videos now. So, you know, we're always trying to do different things like that, and it's always kind of it's very spontaneous and idea driven, and something, you know, where it's like, oh yeah, that'd be great, let's go do that. So yeah.
And I know some of the people who are a little older in the community are super excited to see, you know, Raidhyn making more YouTube videos again, just like he used to.
Yeah, it's been interesting now. Like, I try to explain to people, like, you know, the working on a video game is incredibly mentally taxing. You know, so, like, during your average day, you have all this time in between miniature activities. You know, maybe you're commuting, maybe you just got out of class somewhere, oh, you're at lunch, and so you can think about other things, right? Like, you can sit down and have a sandwich and be like, man, it's so nice, I'm thinking about this movie I saw and like this video I'd like to make when I get home, and I'm just planning that out in my head. Well, now it doesn't work like that. Now it's like all those spare moments are almost always filled with Brawlhalla thoughts. Like, you know, where I'm like, okay, I'm on my phone, I gotta check Reddit, I'm checking Twitter. Okay, let me make sure that everything's fine over here. Who's streaming on Twitch right now? Okay, let me hop in here and say hello real quick. Okay, oh, lunch is over. You know, so like it's basically like I feel like I'm like myself and a lot of people at Blue Mammoth Games are always on. So like it's harder to come up with time to, you know, create things outside of it. It's funny, like me and some of the guys, I went out with some of the guys to go see a movie. We went and saw Deadpool. It was awesome. And we went out to get food afterwards, and we couldn't last like 4 minutes before we started talking about Brawlhalla. Like 4 minutes passed, and it was us standing in line trying to get quesalupas. And then we all started talking about Brawlhalla, like, of our own volition at, like, midnight, you know, on a Friday. Like, that's what we were doing. And that's how everybody on this team is. Like, everybody's just so super passionate about it. But for me personally, what that means is when I get home, I'm like, I can't think about Brawlhalla right now. I'm in my house. You know? So, yeah, that's kind of how that balances out, I guess.
And then you end up streaming Dark Souls, and all of your chat brings up Brawlhalla anyway.
Yeah, you know, it's
no
it's
escape.
The good life. It's the good life.
All right, so I'm going to ask you a few extra questions that I think we're going to start asking all the devs. First off, what games do you like to play outside the office? I know TWK just mentioned Dark Souls. Any?
Yeah, so it's been Dark Souls 3 weeks, so yeah, still battling through Dark Souls. I think I'm getting towards the end, you know? But it's hard to tell because I'm not that good at it, despite loving the series. So yeah, Dark Souls. I play a lot of roguelikes. I've been playing Enter the Gungeon right before Dark Souls. And then, what else have I been playing recently? A little bit of The Division, because as much as I don't want to like it, it's still really good. And yeah, then I also play a lot of other fighting games. So I play Street Fighter V, and I'm trying to keep up with BlazBlue with like the 3 people I know, TWK, who play BlazBlue. Yeah, so it's kind of a mixture of like fighting games and like kind of more high difficulty curve things.
I know that like when you started your YouTube channel, it was like Binding of Isaac content. Like,
yep, played a lot of Isaac. I mean, that was actually the original reason why I started the channel, was like I just wanted to make Isaac videos. Then I got like hooked into this Brawlhalla thing, and here I am.
Yeah, pretty cool. If you were stranded on a deserted island with one other BMG dev, who would you take with you and why?
I'd have to take Dolce. You know, like he's well, one, he's wacky as hell, so like he would keep me entertained. But 2, like, underneath all that, he's a disturbingly intelligent guy. So I'm pretty sure that he'd be able to, like, hack together some sort of, like, satellite signal to, you know, an unfound alien life form that would be able to beam us out of there. So, yeah.
Disturbingly intelligent. You heard it here first. And finally, who's your favorite Brawlhalla legend?
Oh man, is there any other criteria, or do I just is it just favorite?
It's your favorite. I mean, I know that the community likes to accuse you of maining Sir Roland. He's got that pretty swaggy beard that's associated with Raidhyn himself.
All right. Well, all right. So just so I can survive the question. So my favorite character is Roland. There's multiple reasons for this. One, he's awesome. Two, he was the first character to get released after I started playing the game. Mm-hmm. So like when a new character dropped, I was like, oh, yo, this guy's got a beard. He's got a freaking sword. This is sweet. I have a sword character that's not the daggone ninja everyone's playing. This would be great. So yeah, Roland and I go pretty far back.
Cool. I think that wraps up our time with Raidhyn. Again, thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah, thanks for having me on.
And we look forward to all the other things that come out of you and the rest of BMG.
All right. Talk to you guys later.
All right.
Thank you, Raidhyn.
See ya.
See ya.
So, now we are going to move into the balanced meta discussion of the podcast. Basically, the way this is going to work is that BMG puts out a balance patch about every 2 weeks. And so the week after the balance patch, we'll go over basically the patch notes and talk about the changes and what they might affect over time. The weeks that don't have a balance patch, basically it's going to be a lot of the community reaction, because by that time, most of the community has settled down and gotten their thoughts together. And by gotten their thoughts, usually I mean that the week of the patch, the Reddit post is usually, hey, this is awesome, this is the best patch ever. And a week later, the reaction is, this is the worst patch ever, everything is ruined.
Yeah.
So hopefully we can piece together exactly what it is that everyone's complaining about and maybe get a more balanced look that isn't full of salt. So I think the big topic that came up throughout the Reddit this whole week was Barraza. And one guy in particular, that bloke with the hat, made like 4 different posts outlining all the problems with Barraza and why he was underpowered. It was so big that one guy, Onyxia, made a pseudo-political cartoon in which you have Barraza sitting there poor and the BMG devs are behind him and they're not doing anything about it. So what do you guys think? Is Barraza really underpowered, or are people reacting a little too much?
I think Barraza is not that bad. I didn't really see the post, but what were some of the complaints? Do you remember?
Yeah, one of the things that he outlined was the damage and force that was applied on Barraza's signatures. The exact post didn't use frame data so much as it said, here's sort of this real-world application. If I put a legend, Bodvar, I think was his test legend, right in the center of the map, and built up damage, exactly how much damage is it required to put down a sig on this legend and for him to fly off the map. And, you know, I think it's nice that it had a sort of a real-world example, but at the same time, it's not really, I think, how signatures are supposed to be measured. I know TWK has this whole frame compendium. Maybe you can weigh in on that.
Yeah, I first want to say, like, kudos to that bloke with the hat for putting in so much time. I mean, each of those posts was absolutely massive. He clearly put a lot of thought into it and, you know, arranged everything very well. So they were very good reads. You know, with that, there are certain elements of moves that he didn't exactly discuss, just because a move isn't ever truly just the damage or the knockback. There's a whole bunch of different things to it, how quickly it starts up, how much range it covers, how much recovery time there is, how long is it active, like how does that interact with how dodges are, other characters' moves. So it's like this whole big kit and caboodle, and it's tough to look at just any individual or just a couple parts of it and be like, okay, well, it should probably be better in these areas, without discussing like the whole thing. And I understand that would end up being like, 10 more Reddit posts of the same size to fully flesh out just one character's moves. But right now I think, Barraza, he's in a pretty good spot. I do think he could use a little bit of love, just because, the other characters, they've received things and changes, and a lot of Barraza's early strength came from the surprising range of particularly like his side signatures. I know one of them was just recently buffed in the recent patch. The gun side signature is a little bit faster, which is really nice.
Yeah.
So it was really just a lot of these surprising elements. The back step on the axe down sig, the sudden leaps of his gun and axe side sigs. But as he's kind of sat, we've seen that usefulness dwindle a little bit as people have gotten used to it. So like that element of surprise isn't there as much. So it might be worth taking a look at and just kind of seeing, all right, what are some ways we can kind of mold it into something a little generally more useful or more rewarding.
And I think we see that a lot with new legends. Diana, who's the last legend to come out, when she was first unveiled, people freaked out because of her signatures. And they were like, this signature is hitting me, and I'm flying off the map. The whip is, like, way overpowered. It shouldn't be that bad. But in the weeks since, Diana hasn't been a very big forefront in tournaments, at least not to the extent of other legends, because after a couple weeks, everyone gets used to the signatures. They realize where the hitboxes are. They understand how much force these particular moves do. And, I think that the knee-jerk reaction cools down. Barraza maybe had the opposite problem, being that when his signatures came out, I'm sure people at that time were like, wow, this is amazing. But over the past couple months, the freshness has dissipated. And it's like, oh, I'm, at this angle to Barraza, he's going to use his axe neutral sig. And all I need to do is remember exactly where it hits and do a quick dodge, and suddenly it's not a problem. So I can definitely see where the issue comes from with people saying, hey, these signatures are really not that great. We want more buffs. But I think it's also important to note that signatures do not make a legend. And Barraza has guns and an axe, and both of those are really strong weapons. I point to Asuri, who has sword and katars, and general consensus about Asuri's signatures are they're not all that great. Some of them are very useful, but overall, she has some of the weaker signatures. But the same complaints aren't there, because sword is a really great weapon and katars are a really great weapon, and that in itself helps to really balance out the legend. And I think that Barraza, sure, some signature buffs would be super helpful, but he already has two pretty great weapons, and that really helps.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Speaking of his weapons, Axe got a bunch of buffs during the last patch, and some people are complaining it might be a little too much. What do you guys think?
I feel like it's a little too much, especially when all the other balance changes were basically nerfs to the other weapons.
Yeah, go ahead, TWK.
Yeah, the axe, I'm not really sure. I do want to see a little bit more from it. I know we've seen a couple players using it a lot in recent tournaments and to great effect. It does flow a lot better than it used to. Some of the, old knockbacks and things would leave them in awkward spots for follow-ups. And, they definitely molded that and shifted that around so it feels really good. It flows really nicely. It reminds me a lot of like when they reworked the lance a long time ago, after the brief adjustment period where they shifted it back to be, reasonable. But I feel like Axe is probably in a pretty good spot right now. I don't think there's anything specifically that needs a lot of attention. Just because it doesn't have exceedingly long combos, the strings are all dodgeable, it's just really solid play relying mostly on reads, and in these tournaments we've been seeing a lot of players who are known for making fantastic reads. So it just seems really strong.
I can see that, but I also have this problem with Axe being, I guess, more an issue with the way that Axe works. And that's being that it's got these huge, wide hitboxes, and the light attacks have like these surprisingly long active frames because the Axe is a heavy weapon. And, you know, the way you swing a heavy weapon, it takes a while to go around. No one's swinging an axe like a sword really quickly.
Right.
And so that sort of lends itself to this style where you can swing the axe around in all these different directions. I know that down air was a really popular move to just sort of go over someone and just swing the down air. And the amount of space that covered was tremendous, and it was very hard to get away from. And so I guess the way that the axe works is that it allows people to go, hey, here's all these swinging hitboxes. Good luck getting around that. I don't know if you guys have the same sort of feeling with that.
I do, especially when the really experienced axe users, they'll always move backwards after they hit, right? So you have these active frames in front of you, and the enemy's moving backwards while doing that, so that you can't get past it, and they're just moving away. So every hit is just so safe.
Yeah, I mean, those long active frames, you know, they do make it difficult to approach from certain areas, but you got to kind of factor all those in as part of the move. That's why they do have generally some of the longest total durations of any move, enough so that, you know, human reaction time often will say around 20 frames or so. And these moves all last a little bit over double that. So they're theoretically is in the realm of ability to kind of see these moves and then use their large active frames against them a little bit as extra recovery time. As long as you're making sure that, like, okay, I know where it's going to hit, I'm not going to be in that area. I mean, we saw, you know, Pugsy be absolutely dominating with the axe in a recent tournament, and I hate using Exo as the example. I absolutely do. But, like, it just looked like Pugsy could not even do anything against Exo in the match where he tried the axe. And it was because, you know, Exo kind of understands that, okay, these active frames, like, if I'm not near the hitbox, I don't have to respect them. I can use it all as extra time for me to set up my positioning, mount my attack, and then it's just really easy to roll over the axe since it has kind of longer startup than most other weapons. I mean, most other weapons, their neutral lights are sitting between like 3 and 8 frames startup. The axe neutral light is at 10. So it's, you know, when you're really pressed up on it, it can feel a little bit suffocating for the axe player. And I think that's something I'd like to see people explore a bit more. Whether there are certain instances of other moves that might need to be adjusted a little bit, that's definitely something that can be looked at, but I don't know. I feel like it's in a pretty good spot for general play.
Yeah, it's pretty hard to tell right now because Axe before this patch was pretty much never used. I would just never see it, so it's pretty hard to adjust to it after, like, it doesn't get used for such a long time.
Especially since I think that there's a case to be made between the difference of, is a weapon good and is a weapon fun to play against? And that distinction is, of course, something Blue Mammoth Games has to, you know, balance between all the time. Yeah. Axe is maybe not, especially last patch, Axe not the best weapon for competitive play, and it wasn't used as well in tournaments. But I know Axe is one of those weapons that a lot of people think is just not fun to play against, like, because of the swinging hitboxes. They're like, I can't even approach this guy. This is really lame. And so, you know, I think that maybe we're having, or maybe the community is having difficulty distinguishing between those two different factors and being like, hey, Axe has got a bunch of buffs it's too it's too powerful, even though in reality the win-loss rates on ranked games show that Axe isn't actually doing that well. And so, maybe it's that adjustment to make the Axe more fun to play with and or more fun to play against that is really what we need to look at.
Yeah.
Another weapon that got changed was Sword. And while Sword didn't get changed a lot, it got another nerf, which is on top of the nerf that it got the week before, which is on top of the nerf that we got the week before that. And so I know Twilight was someone who pointed that out, that, hey, Sword just keeps getting nerfed. Why is this happening? Is it balance or is it too much?
I think it's a bit too much. I do agree with the down air though. It was really abused. It covered way too much area, like in front, behind, below. But I don't agree with the neutral light though. I think the neutral light was like something that everyone agreed was good on Sword, but it kind of needed something like that. And then it just got nerfed on top of the down air and the neutral air. I think it was a bit too much.
TWK?
Yeah, I know it's gone through a lot of changes recently. Pretty much all nerfs, and I think it's still really strong just because it'll never I don't think it'll ever really be a bad weapon unless they fully break it. Just because of just delete it from the game. Just because of how its moveset works in the sense of how all the moves fit together. Mm-hmm. It's just a really strong, it's just a really good weapon. Like, it all makes sense, it all fits really well, it does what you want it to when you need it to. It is kind of that jack of all trades weapon. I know a bunch of people have bandied that term about for it, just being like, okay, yeah, it doesn't excel in any one area. There are usually other weapons that fit that specific role better, but it does pretty well at most everything. And just given that, I don't know, I feel like it's in a pretty good spot. The down air change was definitely a step in the right direction. Mm-hmm. Definitely needed. There might be like one or two things that can just be shored up a little bit, but I mean, aside from that, I feel like it's pretty good. I know it looks really harsh. It's just like,
nerf
oh
after
my God,
nerf after nerf.
Other nerf. Like, you just see those week after week, and you're like, come on already.
But if you look at tournaments,
it's
week after week after week, you get Bodvar, you get Hattori, you get Sword Legends on top of Sword Legends. And I think that's one of the big things. Right,
it's still really good. And I mean, I don't know, I am kind of enjoying the fact that now we're also seeing a bit more variety in the tournament picks. Because for a while there, it was like, Bodvar or bust for a couple reasons. But, it was pretty much like Bodvar or some other Sword Legend. Whether that was more of like a public perception kind of issue where the top players felt, okay, everyone's talking about Sword being really good, therefore I should play Sword if I'm trying my hardest to win right now. How true that may or may not have been, who
Maybe
can
it's
really
all
say?
A mind game. All the Sword players have banded together and they're like, guys, BMG thinks Sword is too OP. We need to use slightly less Sword Legends. So let's add variety, even though Sword is still OP.
Yeah, like, I just like seeing, everyone sees these Sword nerfs. I don't feel like they really amount to as much as some people may say they do, just because of how it's still performing exceedingly well. But just the general perception that it gives, a lot of players are more willing to kind of step out of their comfort zone and try some other legends and other weapons, and I mean, we've been seeing that, and it's really nice to see.
Yeah, I can definitely agree with the fact that, more variety is more better. But I know, Berthen, you mentioned the Neutralite, and some other top-tier community members have mentioned, I know Egg Soup was a big proponent of, guys, Neutralite is fine. There's no reason to touch it. And so, maybe it's a little too much, but honestly, like, time will tell how much players use other legends within the tournament setting. And I think that when it comes to balance, showing that, hey, in our game, any legend can win a tournament is super important. And as of now, you don't really see that with a lot of legends. And, you know, that's one of the main points that the people complaining about Barraza have made, is that no one who's played Barraza gets, you know, a high place in tournaments. And maybe that is a case to be made to buff Barraza a little bit, is that, hey, as so long as we are seeing Bodvar win every single tournament ever, we should start looking at ways to incentivize people to play other legends until we've got this lovely roster where they're like, there's this top tournament, he mains this guy, this guy mains this guy, and when a new person comes in, they're like, who's the best legend? And the answer is, man, everyone's so good. That's the goal.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. Because a lot of people...
Honestly, I kind of feel like we're right around that point now, more so than ever, really. Maybe not so much as with the legends when you look at, like, certain signatures and things like that, because I know a number of those still have things to be touched up on. But, you know, as far as the individual weapons go, everyone... I've seen countless posts saying, okay, I think this is like one of the most balanced times that the game has ever been. There might just be a couple, you know, stray hairs sticking out here and there that just need to be clipped off, and then it's just going to be like amazing. So I'm just kind of looking forward to that.
Yeah, and a couple of people have asked me about, like, they're new to the game and what character should they main, because they don't want to main a trash character, you know? And I was pretty proud to say, like, lately that every character is pretty good right now. You can just main any and win tournaments with it. Like, I guarantee it. And that felt pretty good to say. It's like, no, just play a character you want, man. It's gonna be good. If you're good enough, you're gonna win tournaments.
Yeah, and tier lists, which I know in the fighting game community are super important. Those have gone down. Like, I remember back in, you know, around summer of last year into fall, it was all about tier lists. What's the latest tier list? You know, Raidhyn, before he was a developer, was making all sorts of tier lists with top people like Tybo. But now that's sort of calmed down. And that's partly because, you know, some of the community members are a little scared to make a tier list, and suddenly they drive the meta. Boo made a tier list together a few months back and basically said, hey, these legends are the best. And for the next 2 weeks, every post on Reddit was, guys, this legend is the best. It needs to be nerfed right now. And so Boo sort of calmed down with that. And didn't do that as much. But it's also because the game itself is really balanced right now. And, you know, despite what a lot of people might think as a knee-jerk reaction, like, hey, I always lose to this guy, Blue Mammoth Games pays a lot of attention to win rates of legends in ranked. And right now, it's at 50% for everyone with very slim margins. I don't know the exact number, but it's something like, you know, 2%. 1%, depending on the legend, off from that 50%, and that's really, really good for a fighting game that's, you know, still in beta. They're still making adjustments, they're still adding balance patches, and over time, I know that Blue Mammoth Games will do everything they can to make it so that everyone's even.
Is there like a link to all these win rates somewhere?
They used to release them. I know they released a couple of them here and there. Right now we don't have them, partially because I'd imagine releasing win rates spurs even more controversy. Guys, this guy has a 51.2% win rate. He's the best. He needs to be nerfed right now.
And then everyone plays him, they don't know him, and then it suddenly just goes down. And it's like, oh, he's so weak.
Yeah, it's just, I mean, I don't think any other fighting game can really say that across all their characters, the overall win-loss rates are only like plus or minus 5% at most historically.
Especially with this many legends, and they're just adding more.
Yeah. Oh yeah, like the only thing that can say it has an even closer win rate is like Counter-Strike, because it's terrorists and counter-terrorists. And...
Hey, there's two! But definitely, yeah. And so, you know, we'll be paying more attention to balance and meta discussion in future podcasts. But, of course, I did want to take the time in this first one to remind everyone that, hey, win rates are pretty even, and I expect that in the future, more balance patches will lead to more balance, not overpowered legends or people who are just trash. Is there anything else you guys wanted to add as far as this latest patch goes?
I don't know. I feel like I talked about most everything I wanted to give on that.
All right. Well, with that, I want to thank everyone who came out to this particular very first podcast. Thank you, Berthen. Thank you, TWK. And thank you to our guest, Raidhyn, again. Thank you to everyone who's listening. Again, if you're listening on an RSS feed or on iTunes, the VOD of this can be found on YouTube. It's on my channel, youtube.com/partofthecreed, and any relevant links will be in the description. And we'll be rotating co-hosts throughout the next few weeks. We'll be getting some new guests, people from the community, maybe more BMG developers. But, you know, thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you next week. Goodbye.